emveni kokuthi the Dutch and the English bathathe lo mhlaba ngamaSwati. They established sovereignty in the South Africa Act of 1909 in the British Parliament.
Have colonial borders become Africa's greatest curse? That question is making headlines once again after a South Africa-based pro-monarchy group, the 𝒂𝒑𝒏𝒂𝒑 Sovereign Restoration Committee, submitted a petition to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and the African Union demanding the return of what they call historic Swaziland.
This is South Africa.
The claim includes the entire Mpumalanga province and parts of KwaZulu, Natal, and Gauteng. Before we continue, if you're passionate about Africa's true history and future, I invite you to read my books, Lies School, Taught Me and Decolonize African Institutions. Both challenge inherited colonial narratives and explore practical solutions for Africa's development. You'll find the links in the description below. The argument from Eswatini is straightforward. Long before European colonialism, the Swazi kingdom extended far beyond the borders of today's Eswatini.
Now, that establishment contravenes the Hague Regulation. Iphindze futhi i-Hague Regulation ithi, Article 55, an occupier can only be an administrator. Now, South Africa is not a sovereign state. It's an occupier. South Africa is not a sovereign state like in Tlhabeni. Njengoba namuhla sinemaswati South Africans. It's called forced assimilation, and it's a crime against humanity.
During the reigns of King Sobhuza I and Mswati II, Swazi influence reached territories that now lie inside modern South Africa. The petition argues that colonial administrations and later apartheid governments arbitrarily divided Swazi communities and denied Eswatini access to the Indian Ocean through areas such as Ingwa, Vuoma, and KOHC Bay. This is not a new issue. King Mswati III has maintained a border restoration committee for years to study historical claims and seek diplomatic recognition of what Eswatini considers ancestral territory. South Africa, however, rejects these claims completely.
It's not a negotiable issue. When they just parcel off our people like cattle and hand them over to a foreign country like that, it's not an issue that is negotiable. And in fact, if there were no courts, there would have been bloodshed. And if they try to do it again, there will be bloodshed. That I can assure you of.
Is there any prospect now, as Colonel said, that it is now a matter for negotiation between yourself, Swaziland, and Kangwani? So, is there any prospect for negotiation on any level?
We're not prepared to talk to Swaziland at all. Even if Swaziland, starting around, on the fact that, starting on the platform saying that they cannot talk to us, even if they were prepared to talk to us on this thing, we're just not prepared to negotiate anything with them. We're not going to entertain any discussion with them on the issue. It's non-negotiable. It's not a negotiable issue. When they just parcel off our people like cattle and hand them over to a foreign country like that, it's not an issue that is negotiable. And in fact, if there were no courts, there would have been bloodshed. And if they try to do it again, there will be bloodshed. That I can assure you of.
Like most African governments, it follows the African Union's long-standing principle of respecting inherited colonial borders.
In 1963, in Addis Ababa, the question of undoing Berlin was a live issue. And if you look at the early debates, there are those who said, let us undo the boundaries. And then it was examined, and they argued that if we started undoing the boundaries, there would be great conflict because the neo-colonizer is still with us. The same was revisited in Cairo in 1964. Hosted by Gamal Abdel Nasser. And the key voices at that time were Nyerere and Nkrumah. Nkrumah believed that these boundaries were temporary because Africa was going to unite anyway.
The Hague Regulation, it's Article 55. An occupier can only be an administrator.
So his argument was, well, these are only going to be boundaries for purposes of administration, and the doctrine of inviolability of inherited boundaries was then drilled down.
The reasoning is simple. If one border changes, countless others could also be challenged. And Eswatini is not alone. Lesotho has also, at various times, raised historical claims over parts of South Africa's Free State and Eastern Cape, arguing that Basotho lands were gradually absorbed during colonial expansion.
But unfortunately, according to Gazette number 74 of the treaty, he was told that what he now has, which is the present Lesotho, is all he will ever get. He cried painfully, according to the reports. King Moshoeshoe then headed to the UN, which ultimately made a ruling that South Africa can only be readmitted to the Commonwealth countries if they complied with an order to return the claimed territories of Lesotho and other neighboring communities. These boundaries go as far as the Tugela River, passes through Bergville, and proceed to Ngandu, now known as.
While these claims have not resulted in formal border negotiations, they remind us that many African states carry historical grievances rooted in colonial-era boundary making.
Colonial division and partition of Africa contributes to the misunderstanding of the issue.
They just divided borders without considering culture, just considering what they will get from there. See?
This is the tragedy of Africa. At the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885, European powers divided an entire continent with little regard for the people already living there. Ethnic groups were separated, kingdoms were fragmented, families found themselves in different countries overnight. Artificial borders replaced historical realities. Yet after independence, African leaders made a difficult but pragmatic decision. In 1964, the Organization of African Unity, the predecessor of today's African Union, agreed to preserve inherited borders, not because they believed they were fair, but because reopening every historical claim risked endless wars across the continent. That decision has helped prevent many territorial disputes from escalating, but it has never erased the pain or the historical injustices that created those borders. The real question is this: should Africa spend the next century arguing over colonial maps? Or should Africans focus on making those borders matter less? Imagine an Africa where citizens could travel freely from Cape Town to 𝒂𝒑, where businesses could trade across borders without unnecessary barriers, where students, professionals, and entrepreneurs could work anywhere on the continent. That is the vision behind the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, and the broader dream of African integration. Perhaps the answer is not constantly redrawing borders. Perhaps the answer is building an Africa where borders no longer limit African opportunity. If goods, services, capital, and people move freely across the continent.
Well, the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement is going to be the real engine for economic growth on the African continent. Africa is one of those continents that has not been trading with itself. We've been trading with other continents. And yet real economic growth arises from economic integration, trading with various countries on a continent. And now this agreement, this free trade agreement, gives us the best opportunity that we've ever had. In fact, it is an economic revolution that is now unfolding before our eyes.
Many of these historical disputes lose much of their practical significance. Instead of many small, economically weak states competing against one another, Africa can become one of the world's largest integrated markets. History should unite us, not divide us. If you enjoy these discussions, consider becoming an Africarized channel member. Members receive exclusive content, members' first videos, behind-the-scenes discussions, and other special benefits. Simply click the join button below, and don't forget to check out my books, Lies School Taught Me and Decolonize African Institutions, linked in the description. Remember this: colonialism divided Africa. Pan-AFF-RICUnism seeks to reconnect it. Our future will not be built by fighting over lines drawn by colonial rulers. It will be built by creating a continent where Africans can prosper together. This is Africarized. I'm Kelvin Jassy. Until next time, let's continue telling Africa's story. Because Africa's greatest strength has always been its unity.